Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Buff Stuff. My name is Reid, Melton, and together with a whole panel of awesomeness, we're going to be coming your way to buff up your League of Legends knowledge, whether it's solo queue, NACS, LCS, or whatever you want to know more about. Buff Stuff, it's got your back. So let's go ahead and open up with a few brief introductions, talk about who's here, why they're here. Let's go ahead and introduce our panel for tonight. My co-host joining me today, we've been working together for a while, is Drew FloorCake Siever. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know what's up.
Hello, everybody. My name is the FloorCake or Drew. Any of those work for me. I've been around the scene for a little bit to get to know a little bit about me. I started off working with Team Storm, then I did some work with VWS. I'm an analyst and sometimes a coach. Better as an analyst, not the best coach. I do a little bit of casting, and now I'm here. So, over to you, Frank.
All right, my name is Frank Fang. Might know me from Frank Fang Gaming. Been in the league scene since 2011. Started off as a player, slowly moved my way to the management position. Currently, I started the challenger scene in the NA with Mobile Fire Challenger Series, and then that slowly died out, and then now I'm just a full-time manager for Frank Fang Gaming.
Well, thank you very much, Frank Fang. Appreciate your contribution to the North American Challenger Series, North American Challenger scene, and we'll look forward to getting some more of that insight later on. And last but not least, our guest, who probably has more ELO than all of the rest of us combined. Do want to welcome Alec Bonquish Warren. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what's up?
Hey, what's up? My name is Bonquish, and I've been in the Challenger scene as a player for quite a while now. My old name was Baby Zeus, if you've known me as that. And I recently was just playing with Frank Fang Gaming as supports, and I stepped back as a player to now be working on their support staff. So I'm an analyst now for Frank Fang Gaming.
Yeah, never thought I would see the day Baby Zeus as an analyst. You know, we've come a long way, and I think all of us have. So it's exciting to be here as part of Buff Stuff, of course, brought to you by Wazabi Productions. So the team behind tournaments like League One and a whole host of other League of Legends awesomeness. So I do want to thank them for the opportunity to host this show. And of course, if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and hop into some of our topics. You can see them off there to the side. We'll be covering some solo queue, Challenger Series, LCS. Bring up some of that discussion a little bit later on. But let's go ahead and jump into the meat of the show, the buff stuff. We're going to start off with solo queue and talk about a little bit about some of the struggles that people are feeling right now. It's starting to get deep into season 5. There's been a lot of changes, and one of the changes, let's just go ahead and start with right off the bat, is Ashe. Brand new kit, and at least from the challenger players I've been watching, seems to be relatively well received, even though it's a little bit of a different way to play her. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about that. Turn things over to Bonquish. You play a lot of challenger solo queue. Where do you see Ashe right now? What's going on with her kit?
I don't really know, play much AD carry, but from what I've seen from players and in solo queue right now, everyone's been playing her, and she's been doing pretty well actually in the current meta with AD carries such as I think Kalista, Jinx, Corki, Siever. She does pretty well against those champions, and with her new kit, I think one of her biggest weaknesses before was her laning phase. She could get pretty abused and zoned out in laning phase, but now she has a pretty strong kit where she could just trade and actually zone people out now in lane. So she's doing really well right now, I think, in solo queue.
Yeah, and I see a lot of players. I think biggest proponent of Ashe right now is either H2K's AD carry. Hjarnan has an account with 80-90% win ratio, only Ashe. And I know as far as North American Challenger scene goes, Lod for Cloud9 Tempest has just been spamming Ashe games. I think they actually first picked it a couple of games just because they love that champion so much. So yeah, a lot of popularity. And of course, speaking of popularity, an item that's bought, I don't know the stats, but it's going to be a high percentage. A lot on junglers recently is Cinderhulk. Started out with every jungler in the world building it. Now it's actually started to taper off with some of the nerfs. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about that more. And of course, if any of you have opportunities to chime in, let me know. I'll throw it back to Bonquish, then maybe we'll rotate out through the panel.
Well, I'm pretty sure Cinderhulk still is the main jungle item right now. I mean, with the current meta, it's basically Nunu, Sejuani, Rek'Sai, and Gragas, and you basically just become very tanky with Cinderhulk. And pretty much early on, like if you get that, or you get any type of lead early on, like an AD carry basically will not have enough items early on to be able to do any damage to them. So Cinderhulk on junglers is very strong still, I think.
Yeah. So Frank Fang, a big Kale player. Do you think on jungle Kale you're going to want to go with the Cinderhulk now just because it's so strong?
No, I'd still go with the Devour. Wait, farm it out for 60 minutes. Come out of the jungle.
Just kill everybody.
The crap out. Yeah, just kill everybody.
All right, sounds good. And so, Drew, what are your thoughts on Cinderhulk right now? I know it just got nerfed. Do you think that really affected anything, or is it still the number one go-to item?
It's still the number one go-to item. It's just one of those things that the only champions that don't build it that can even come close to the same effectiveness is stuff like Lee Sin and pretty mechanically intensive champions. So you have to be an absolute monster at Lee Sin, and you have to pull off really difficult mechanical plays just to get the same level of effectiveness you get on Sejuani from just kind of walking forward and letting your thingy hit things. So,
getting Cinderhulk lets you make more mistakes in a sense where you don't have to be as calculated. You have so much HP, so much armor, so much survivability that you're able to take risks. Now, if you went somewhere with something like Warrior and stuff, like we see like Rek'Sai, like Rek'Sai, like Nori loves to build Warrior enchantments, and it's just he's skilled enough that he can get away with it. But if you put it onto other people who might not be mechanically adept, then they just fall all over the place, and they kind of Cinderhulk's more of like the fallback.
Right.
Because, like I said, a lot of junglers play because they're not that mechanically.
It's also just the current meta is like it's very tanky frontline, get at your face junglers, and Cinderhulk is the best item for that.
Yeah, even back when you used to have the Spirit Stone itemization, there was a version of the Spirit of the Ancient Golem that had that same 25% bonus health bonus. And when that was in there, almost everybody bought that because it was so cost effective. You're just getting percentage increases, and it scales so well. You just buy like a Giant's Belt after you complete Cinderhulk, and you're ridiculously tanky. So that like when you go for a turret dive with Cinderhulk, you can just tank up the extra turret shots and walk back out. Whereas with Warrior, you might be able to get a quicker kill under turret, but you have to make those like clutch flashes or ward jumps or whatever out from under the turret that a Cinderhulk jungler wouldn't be able to do. So just an example, not to belabor the point, still super strong, so definitely a thumbs up on that, and that's definitely the big buff item that you want to go with. So moving on past Cinderhulk, there are other junglers out there. We talked a little bit about Warrior Enchantment, but I know Frank said, as far as Jungle Kale, which is a pseudo specialty of his, you want to go with the Devourer. There's also that Magus Enchant, which I'm guessing you'd only really build on Nidalee. Any other picks that you'd build something other than Cinderhulk on?
Jungle Aurelia.
There's a couple, especially in solo queue. You can get away with like doing non-Cinderhulk. I mean, you could do Lee Sin, like was brought up before. I think Lee Sin's actually been seen, I think, in Korea, or it was played like a couple times in some other region. It was being played in solo queue's been played a lot recently, and just you can go Warrior on that. There's also a lot of Evelynn being played too. You sometimes can build Cinderhulk, but a lot of people do. I think they do Warrior and Magus on that one too.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I think Kha'Zix. There's a couple of Kha'Zix being seen in solo queue, and they also do Warrior. And then I think
you get away with it on Rengar.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. I think that's still one of the best solo queue junglers because Rengar is. Solo queue, always Rengar just goes off and carries. So.
Yeah. Anything with stealth, I think that's where you're starting to see maybe a little bit more Evelynn. I know in Europe, Evelynn is really coming in as a challenger jungler or jungle champion to bring out. And just use that stealth, the map mobility, surprise factor to go ahead and get that one down. So if you don't want to build Cinderhulk, there's still some options for you out there. But just in general, it's probably a good item to just go to. And that's kind of talking about builds takes us to a little bit more of a directly applicable. You're watching the show, you're looking for some way to play solo queue a little bit better. And so what are the best ways to play solo queue? Like what picks are you really looking to go for? I guess we could start with top lane. Like what's the top lane meta like? Maybe turn things over to Baby Zeus.
Alright, for top lane, And solo queue, I mean, you could do a lot of stuff, but the main
Point
things
and
that
click,
usually
Gnar, Maokai.
yeah, Gnar, Maokai, Rumble, Hecarim is still, even after the nerfs, like people still are liking Hecarim. You got, I think Vlad and Cassiopeia can also be pretty good at top, especially in solo queue. Like a lot of people don't really do well against Cassiopeia in top lane. You still can do. Let's see. I mean, yeah, there's basically Gnar, Maokai, Hecarim, Rumble. I think that's like the main ones. Am I missing anything from that?
I know Sion used to be a big top laner, but he kind of fell off with some of the more recent nerfs. Only other top laners I see maybe a whole lot would be Gnar, Maokai, maybe some Aurelia in there.
Maybe some Lulu too. Yeah, actually, Aurelia has been seeing a lot of play because Aurelia does pretty well against, or it can be a snowbally lane for like Gnar or Rumble too. So
yeah, and a lot of guys like I think Wicked really popularized the new like super damage focused Aurelia build where you go like Berserker Greaves into like Hex Drinker, Trinity Forest Hex Drinker. Maybe Frozen Heart, stuff like that.
Dude, that's so whack. Frank can't
it's risky to do, but in solo queue you can get away with doing it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Frank?
That build's whack, man. I wouldn't even do that build. And
dude, I watched.
I come up with some crazy shit.
Yeah, it definitely requires a little bit of a mastery of the champion. And on players who are those like hyper carry aggressive picks, like I know Wicked, I know for North America, Challenger Series top laner, Acadian really likes the all in aggressive builds top lane too. So definitely yeah, dude.
His Yasuo actually is pretty good. Like it applies, even if like he doesn't have a good score, like he'll usually be applying very strong pressure on the map, and you have to like send resources to try to stop it. So it's a pretty good pick actually.
And it works really well against some top laners who aren't necessarily playing to be able to withstand that kind of hyper carry damage. So it can be a little bit, catch you off guard, and then maybe you don't really know. So talk about kind of the rest of the map. What are, I guess, less lane specific because we got to keep moving, but just strong solo queue champions. If you're going into solo queue, regardless of role, like what are the big strong champions you want to try to grab?
I think Callista is pretty good at solo queue. You got
like a lot of snowballers.
Cassiopeia. Yeah, basically really snowbally champs that can end the game pretty early. So it would be like
Annie.
Callista.
Like Annie support.
No, I don't really.
No, not anymore.
Her lane phase, I think, has gotten she's still fine, but she can't be as abusive as she used to be.
Yeah, 50 range off your auto attacks is just like
if you misstep in lane, you're gonna get punished for it. Like one of the reasons she was really strong is you can't trade back to her. Like she would auto attack you and just run away. Like now, if she tries to step into auto and you're like Alistar, you can easily get a combo on her and just wreck her. So she's not as strong, but I think in mid lane she's still fine. Like Annie Bot probably still is spamming it and doing fine.
Yeah, I got a chance to catch Annie Bot's stream the other day. Didn't seem to affect a whole lot. It hurts your trades versus mages to have very bad auto attack trades back against you. Like the range versus melee matchup is still pretty good for her. It probably always will be, but yeah, a lot of changes kind of took her out of the support role. But speaking of Alistar, you are starting to see Alistar a little bit more as a support, and I know you play a lot of support, Bonquish. So, what are your thoughts on Alistar? Because I definitely see him coming back.
I think he's pretty strong now. I mean, I think early on in lane phase, like he basically plays right now. A lot of like challenger sports or in teams, they play him like a Soraka. Like they'll max the heal and just play back, and they'll just keep spamming heal in lane. Yeah, and they'll basically use his CC and takiness to try to like zone control the lane. Like zone them out, pressure them, and just keep healing up and letting them sustain. And usually when he hits 6, you look for a dive. Like you look to either. Yeah, basically you just force a dive when he's 6. You bring the jungler down, you set up a wave, and you basically just literally have a free dive. His all on the tower, like you could take like 50 hits and they won't even do anything to you.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. 70% damage reduction at level 6. I think if you take into account the time value of gold, so that you have a lot of stats early on being more valuable than later, it's something like 2 to 3k worth of stats just off the damage reduction, and you get like a bunch of extra like free bonus attack damage too. Like I don't even know why that's on the ability, but at max rank you get like 50 AD off of that, and you're just like, where is this coming from?
His old passive used to deal like extra damage to turrets.
Yeah, that's true. When you
so you just turn on your ult, Yeah, you just turn on your ult and you just fucking
Trample
wail
on
at the turrets.
Yeah, I think Rammus still does that, where his ult does damage to turrets along with his auto attacks. But I don't think we'll be seeing Rammus coming back. So, any final ideas on solo queue, Drew or Frank?
I think LeBlanc is always going to be a good solo queue champion. Morgana, I think, is good as a support, just simply because you can save your bad teammates with a good black shield.
Yeah, like any champions with like pick potential in solo queue is just
It could end the game. Like someone just
yeah.
makes a misstep and you catch them out and it's game over.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's first of all it's solo queue, so communication can't be that great.
Yeah.
And then with just catch potential, I mean, like Morgana, you throw a binding, they're stuck for 2.5 seconds. They're gonna
So
die.
any snowbally champ is pretty good. Like they're not gonna people in solo queue don't really play passive or try to think of like, oh, if I just don't feed this guy, we win. They basically just do their own thing and they usually feed them. So it's
All right.
game, yeah.
So play snowbally stuff and try to get some pick potential in there. Really good advice coming into solo queue. I think that's always going to be true regardless of the champions. But with things like Morgana, LeBlanc, anything that can just pick somebody out. I guess maybe Ari to some extent there. I know I've seen a few challenger mid laners trying to pick that one up. But yeah, so that's going to do it for our discussion as far as solo queue is concerned. So let's go ahead and turn the discussion maybe just a little bit out of solo queue back towards a little bit more of the competitive meta. And we're going to start talking about the North American Challenger Series. Since I know a lot of us have a lot of interest in that, it's starting up. North American Challenger Series playoffs, or not playoffs, qualifiers will actually be going on this week as well. So there's going to be a lot of cool teams with a lot of really good potential coming out for, I want to say, I think there are like 5 or 6 top teams competing in NACS qualifiers that are just like, they're devastatingly strong. So let's go ahead and talk about the North American Challenger Series. First of all, are there any teams that have really stood out to you as far as NACS qualifiers? I know a couple of big names in a few of the Challenger tournaments here and there, but I guess we'll go ahead and start with Bonquish and work our way across the panel. What names really stand out to you in the North American Challenger Series qualifiers, and who do you expect to do really well?
I think there are like 4 top teams basically right now. Would be not really in a skill order, but it would be probably Misfits, C9T, Frank Fan Gaming, and I think it's Odyssey now, which was Turing B.
Mm-hmm.
I think they look to be the strongest right now. There obviously are a couple other teams. Like I think the Elo Mingle new roster doesn't look too bad. Like I think they just got Bloodwater and oh wait, was that? Is that the Elo Mingo roster?
Storm has.
No, that's
Storm
Storm.
has.
Oh, it's Storm?
Yeah, Storm.
The Elo Mingo one it's Massacre 8? Right, who got the...
Yeah, that's the Elo Mingle
Oh,
roster.
yeah, it was the Wolf's Claw, right? The Wolf's Claw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that roster actually looks pretty good. Like, Storm and them are... They could be like a wild card team, I think could. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they did well, you know? I think they would be the 2 wild card teams that could do well. But other than that, yeah, I think it's those 4 strong teams, and then those could be 2 wildcard teams that could do well.
All right, Frank. Any thoughts on the #1 team in NACS qualifiers?
Pretty much. I feel like with the top 4 that Baby Zeus listed would be, on like a good day, it would be 50-50. Like we'd all be able to take games out of each other. It's just how the players' mentalities all stand up against each other. So I mean, it should be interesting. So like Frank Fan Gaming and C9T, we play tomorrow. So that's right off the bat. You have one of the top 2 teams playing at it in round 1. So it'll be nice to watch.
All right, so yeah, Frank Fan Gaming will be playing against Cloud9 Tempest in the early part of the brackets, and I know that's probably the best, the best overall judge of skill when it comes right down to it, with maybe some mismatches as far as that in the other parts of the bracket, depending on how you rate the teams. But with Cloud9 Tempest and Frank Fan Gaming, just like so many just big name players, lots of experience, a ton of time spent in the North American Challenger Series. I know, Frank, maybe you can speak specifically towards Frank Fan Gaming, not necessarily giving away any strats or anything, but how's Frank Fang looking? Do you guys feel good going into probably one of the stronger teams in NACS?
Yeah, we're good. We're doing well. We're doing well. We're feeling confident just because all our practices we've been trying to stretch them out into like best out of 3s, like longer series, so the players don't get fatigued as much.
Right.
And taking each scrim seriously just so that it builds mental fortitude. so that in case they're in the, like, for some reason something bad does happen, we have the experience to go back on it. Yeah.
All right, yeah, experience definitely something that your roster has come up with. So talk to us a little bit more about Frank Fang Gaming, because you've been around for at least a couple splits. And how did you get this final version of FFG together? How did the players come into the team? Did you approach them? Did they approach you? Did you scout them? Stuff like that?
Well, we broke off. Well, we left Brawl, so that came up with I had Brandon and Latman together, and then we also had. So I went out and reached out to Baby Zeus as well, and Baby Zeus was able to contact 14A after seeing 14A just crush solo queue games. And then for Golden Glue, it was just, hey, look, we met at NACS last year in LA. You're a cool guy. I'm a cool guy. Do you want to play for our team? He's like, yeah, sure, why not? And then, big happy family at the end.
A big happy Frank Fang family. That makes you the dad, right?
I'm pretty much the dad and the mom and the bank and
literally everything else. You're the whole family in one. You have these kids that you have to keep in line. Well, it's pretty cool. And so talking about predictions for NACS, Drew, I guess we haven't really spoken to you about the teams, but who would be your big name picks to make it through to the end of the bracket? And are there any teams that you really expect to see do very well and make it to the next season?
I would say the top teams right now are Misfits. I think they're the best. And then obviously next comes Frank Fang Gaming and Cloud9. They're a very close second place and third place. Really hard to say who's better. I kind of give the edge to Frank Fang, and not just because you guys are here.
Nice.
Hey, because he's looking at you right now.
Hey, I tweet. You can go back in my Twitter history. I tweeted out the second I saw the bracket. I was like, bold prediction, Frank Fang Gaming
the
wins.
Frank Fang chat? No, not the chat. The chant. The Frank Fang Gaming chant.
No.
I don't think anyone. If anyone in chat knows the Frank Fang Gaming chant, then let us know. But I definitely think if you guys make it deeper into the bracket, or maybe when you guys make it deeper into the bracket, you'll probably be hearing a little bit of that as support. So can expect to see some of that there too. So let's talk about another big popular topic as far as challenger teams go, is the amount of just money and high profile players being funneled into the scene. Whether you talk about big name funding, is behind some of the rosters for Misfits and Odyssey, or if you want to talk about just importing big name new players, I know Enemy Esports, kind of the first challenger team to really do that, or one of the first to get Trashy from Denmark to come over and play. They're in LCS now, and we just had a recent announcement that both Steelback and Jeebus will both be heading their way to North America to play for their respective challenger teams as well. So what are your thoughts about importing talent, or just the ton of money coming into the challenger scene? Is that a good thing, and how do you see that really changing things? Start with Bonquish.
Well, it's a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, it's a good thing that there are more and more of big money teams coming in, because I feel it gives a pretty big advantage to those teams over other teams. If you look at recent teams, like you just said, Enemy made it to LCS, when Curse Academy made it in, and Coast made it last split. Those teams, they were in the challenger team for quite a while, and they even lost, and they stayed together because they had the big profile team names, and they had the money to keep funneling in rosters. A lot of times, teams, when they're in the challenger teams, if they don't make an NACS qualifier split, they have to disband because there's just no resources to keep them playing for the downtime. So these big money teams, basically, with the money and everything, it keeps players interested and motivated to keep playing in the downtime and be prepped for the very next split. And I think if we can get more of those, you can obviously see Odyssey's coming in. Fusion was a big money team. But yeah, the more and more of those come in, I think it could actually really improve the challenger scene and make it a lot better. But until we get more and more of those, I think that's the only time it would be. Because right now, there's two, I think, right now, and it really gives a big advantage over other challenger teams that just can't compete with the money and have the resources and get the staff or get the players they want. Because the money obviously attracts the best players, so they can get any player they want and basically they're going to get the best players, and other teams are going to have to live with whatever is left of the free agencies, and it's probably not going to be as good as those teams. So they're going to just end up disbanding and funneling in and out, obviously, until more investors or teams or organizations that are willing to put money into other teams. Like, I can't really see it's getting better until that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's one small step for the challenger scene at a time. So definitely moving things forward. And I think another way that the challenger scene is being moved forward. Let's go ahead and talk about the format for this NACS, or at least for the qualifiers. The games will be best out of 3, and I think that's something we can all get behind and agree is a pretty big improvement for NACS to see it move from a best of 1 format.
Yeah, that is true. I think one thing that Riot still needs to do to improve the format, which is obviously, I think the best of 1 was the first step. I think doing double elimination needs to be the next step. Like, I mean, if you look at the bracket right now, there's 3, I think, top teams in the bottom bracket, and only one of those is going to make that out. So I don't, like, and I'm pretty sure, I think Allen, or there was like an article that just came out where Nick Allen was saying how he wants the best teams to have the chance at qualifying for LCS, and I think double elimination will guarantee the best teams in the Challenger League will make it out. Like, instead of, basically, right now, it's pretty big and reliable on ranked 5s, and it's so hard to guess what's going to happen or where you want to be and try to predict with, like, teams like Legendary that don't fill their paperwork out and drop out, or teams like Odyssey where you don't know if they're taking Fusion spot or not. Like, it's pretty hard to try to get a good bracket or seeding that you want, but it could be huge on determining if you make it into the NACS or not. Like, I think Misfits, I mean, they're the strongest team, I think, right now, probably, and they have a pretty easy bracket right now. Like, they don't have to face C9T, they don't have to face Odyssey, or they don't have to face Frank Fang Gaming, which I think are the other top contenders. So they should have an easy ride to NACS, and with double elimination, I think it would guarantee basically giving every team a chance at making it. So
yeah, and of course, making it into NACS and then making it from there into LCS. Frank, what are your thoughts on the level of play in the North American Challenger Series and how it relates to LCS teams? Because we're going to start to see more and more of that as we have teams like TDK and Enemy buffing up their rosters and actually qualifying for LCS. How do you think the lower parts of LCS compare to NACS right now?
I think there's still maybe a little gap. I want to say it might be like 45-55 in terms of challenger teams getting the 45 and then the lower teams getting the 55 edge, just because they have a more structured environment, and so it's essentially like Enemy and TDK, for example. If I put them into LCS, they would easily take games from the challenger teams, no doubt. So
go ahead.
Yeah, and then for challenger teams, it's always been very, very top heavy. Like, ever since the challenger scene actually came up, it's been top heavy. You can imagine, like Complexity, TBD, like Napkins. Like, it's every tournament that you've casted in the good old days. It's always those 3. So it's starting to break away a little from that. We're getting a bit more people up on the top. But the gap between, like, the skill gap between the NACS tournament from, like, first place, who you think the strongest and who you think the weakest team, is huge.
Yeah, there's still a large difference. And I think that as we start adding more players from LCS to Challenger scene, as sort of the flow starts to reverse, like we said, we had Steel back, and even Pinoy, I believe Efforts mentioned that earlier, is when you start adding more LCS players to the Challenger scene, guys like Alex Itch, a good example, and just over and over again, it just starts to strengthen the Challenger scene even more and more. And most of the time that results in NACS teams being able to promote up into LCS, but it's still kind of interesting to see, the teams come full cycle. Like, you start out in Challenger scene, you make it to LCS, you go back to Challenger scene, you make it back again. Like things with Orihen or even Wicked's new team, kind of getting a fresh start to their LCS. So the cycle, I wouldn't say it's necessarily complete right now with Challenger teams being able to, like, cycle in and out consistently, but at least in NALCS, we're starting to see some of that Challenger scene hype start to cycle up into it. And so it's really cool to see teams on both sides, drop out of LCS and then come back in a little bit later on, and
kind
of course the
revamp.
players too.
Yeah, for the players, it should be more of like, because we're importing so many like a lot of people are importing players from other regions.
Mm-hmm.
It should give the NA scene kind of like a wake up call, saying, "Hey, look, no one's picking up talent in our pool. Like something's wrong. Like the players need to get that in their minds. Like something's wrong. We have to either play troll less or like try harder in solo queue, or just make a better impression so that." All this extra money that's funneling overseas could be funneling into your hands.
Exactly. And I think region-wise, there's always been a little bit of a discrepancy. Not necessarily one region greater than other region, but each region starts to develop its defining strengths. And one of the things about North America specifically is that while it may have certain strengths here and there, it as opposed, or maybe greater than other regions, loves to draw on international talent. I think China has really started to show that too, with the Korean influx of players coming in there. And I think a lot of regions are starting to realize, hey, maybe we can't get all the best players from just our region, but you have to start out with a strong base of players in your region. I think that's one thing that North American Challenger Series really helps to cultivate, but now it's kind of helping to cultivate strong players from other regions too. So I do think there definitely needs to be a strong base before you try to build on that. How do you feel about that, Drew?
I actually think one of the biggest issues with the North American Challenger scene is over half of the player base plays with, a huge ping delay. So, maybe that person that has 110 ping that lives in New York, maybe if he would have had 30 ping, he would have been really good at the game and would have made it to, a top team. So North America effectively has a smaller pool of players to draw from, even if we do have a pretty big player base.
Now, there are some counters to that argument. I think as far as NALCS goes, the biggest counter example is Quas. You got a challenger on North American servers playing from Venezuela with 200 ping. And I was talking to him, I remember talking to him a couple of years ago, and he said, yeah, I would actually take Ghost instead of Flash, because there was such a delay with my Flash timings, oftentimes it wouldn't really work out. And I could always just pop Ghost early and run away without having to have those fast reaction times. So some adaptations, and of course, big examples from Season 1 even. Most of the Korean players before Korea had a server would play on North America and get very high elo there. I remember, I think it was Woong had 5 accounts in the top 10 players in North America at that time. So some pretty impressive results. And a little bit of a bias example, there are a lot of teams in Japan now that LJL has started to start up again. Some of the best teams in Japan have managed to not only hit challenger ranked 5s in North America, but also have actually managed to hit high diamond on the Korean servers too. So when it comes to new regions popping up and playing with that ping differential on other servers, it's still definitely possible. If you have enough talent, you're going to do well no matter what the difficulty is in front of you. But it is sometimes a barrier, and so definitely something to think about. So as far as NACS goes, is there anything else you want to talk about? I guess I'll turn this over to whoever. Any final thoughts on NACS and big question marks? I know there's still a couple of rosters that aren't quite locked in, so still some big question marks out there in the NACS scene.
I do kind of want to mention, the team that I am with, Aware Gaming, which was formerly VWS. They're a little bit underhyped simply because they weren't playing an alpha draft and they never got to really play in much League One with the full roster due to some scheduling conflicts. So they might actually be able to pull off an upset over Storm and make it fairly far into the bracket. So you never know.
Never know. Frank Fang, any final comments or thoughts about NACS or any of the teams involved?
Just play your hearts out, because it's one of the only, it's the only Riot sponsored tournament for Challenger, and it comes around once every quarter. So it's,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to complain about the bracket, but it's got to play what's the phrase?
You got to play the cards you're dealt. There you go.
Exactly. Yes.
Right. Do you guys think a challenger scene will start to develop outside of just the Riot League now that there's so many good teams and so many good players locked out due to the like length of the league now. And
Well, I mean, that's a question that I would give to, you know, MLG, who was that other? IPL maybe, but you know, they're all dead. So, but ESL, I think ESL has tried something. Has ES besides Go for All? I mean, like their Premier League wasn't bad, like around last year or so.
and of course there's, you know, smaller tournaments like League One that do stuff like that.
You don't say.
If a whole bunch of people came out and watched it, and all the teams in it were to advertise
Oh
when they're
my
playing
God.
better, then we'd have more money to give to the teams.
I think the alpha
You know,
draft was
intent.
pretty big too, actually. For the challengers. Like,
Yeah,
out of all seriousness, like it really was pretty big, the alpha draft. And
Yeah,
we
how
need
to-
more stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely need a lot more, not necessarily just tournaments, but just support. So if any of the people watching, you know, find a favorite challenger team to support, because it's actually really cool to watch players like become like the next big thing or the up and coming player, make it all the way up to LCS and kind of follow them along their journey. I know that's what I used to do, like back when Go for Lols were like one of the biggest tournaments in the world. You used to have teams like World Elite, eHome, which is a big Chinese team back in the day. Some of the best teams from like Korea, they all used to play in Go for Lol together. It was so awesome to watch. And so I got to know a lot of players from there that are now in like Challenger Series, LCS, and it's just been really cool to see the rise. So definitely support for the Challenger scene is something that maybe we could all use, put a little bit more work and effort into, and certainly something that I personally like to see as much progress with as possible, because it's something very near and dear to my heart. And I certainly hope that it is to everyone else watching out there. So very good luck to all the teams and the players who are playing in their North American Challenger Series matches all over this week. It's going to be a big week for a lot of players, so stay tuned for more results on that. And make sure to stay tuned to Buff Stuff, because we are going to be taking a quick commercial break here, taking a brief outage to grab some water and refuel ourselves before we come back. And when we do come back, we'll be talking about some NALCS action, getting some thoughts and opinions on that. So thanks for watching Buff Stuff. We'll be right back after a short break. We're back. Welcome back to Buff Stuff. My name is Rapid. With me, of course, my illustrious panel of guests. Solo side are Frank Fang of Frank Fang Gaming fame, and a wonderful analyst joining us, my wonderful co-host, Drew FloorCakes. I'm just going to call him Drew most likely. And of course, joining us fresh from the Challenger scene is Bon Quish. You might know him a little bit better as Baby Zeus. And on Buff Stuff, we're talking about everything to do with League of Legends. So we already covered Solo Queue, North American Challenger Series. We're finally moving into what most of you guys, if you're aware of esports, want to hear about, and that's the North American LCS. A lot of changes over the course of the preseason, big team changes, big roster changes to those teams, and of course some additions of teams themselves to LCS. So lots to talk about here with LCS. So guys, what are your opinions of LCS, this split? Better, worse? What do you think of all these changes, and which ones are you think the biggest? Then we'll go ahead and break them down a little bit more. Starting with Drew.
Lots of big changes here. Not any massive roster shakeups, so nothing too crazy and awesome. Just a few better players being added into some teams. One of the bigger ones was Altec got picked up by Gravity to replace Cop, and then Saint Vicious retired. I think that's a big one.
Right, especially the addition of Move to that roster, a guy that's had previous professional experience, but wasn't really on any team's radar as far as opportunities, at least as far as I'm aware. So yeah, big changes to Gravity there. What about you, Frank? How do you see the North American LCS shaping up, and what do you think are some of the bigger changes?
I think CLG's taking the right steps into getting, trying to adapt the Korean kind of Korean ways of doing things, which is having two mids and kind of helping each other kind of have like an internal competition where they want to make themselves better, and then the whole CLG benefits from that. So we might, assuming that CLG's, the internal issues are out of the question, it's very, very beneficial. Now, I hope to see a lot of teams do that. And then, further down the line, I wish we can have like sister teams. That way, kind of like an A and B league. That would be phenomenal. But you know, one man can only dream. One man can only dream.
Where we have Frank Fang A and B teams, or
that would be. I mean, I wouldn't mind.
What if you get like Taylor Swift as a sponsor for Frank Fang Gaming?
Then we would get married and her last name would be Taylor Fang. And Taylor Fang really.
So you'd be single-handedly responsible for torpedoing her career just because she had to change her last name.
I'm sure she's got a ton of money waiting. She can't write any more songs anymore because I'll never break her heart. So I mean, essentially,
what if she writes your name in that blank space, man?
Aren't you in your girlfriend's apartment right now telling this about marrying Taylor Swift?
She's out right now.
And there's no possible way that anyone's gonna link her to this.
She doesn't play video games. She doesn't even know what Twitch is.
So there's gonna be a very obvious reason that Frank won't be on the podcast tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but next time we do it.
All
right. Well, what about you, Bonquish? What do you think about LCS this season? Some of the bigger changes.
I mean, obviously there are rush changes, but I think, like you guys are talking about, the biggest thing that could change the LCS is what CLG is doing, and I wonder how it's going to affect, obviously, their outcome and the style of their play, and if it will also like encourage other teams to start doing what they're doing or look to try to incorporate what they're going for. So I think that could be the biggest thing to look out for, because obviously the rule changed, right, where you can, like, they just released the rules where you can actually do that now and sub them out during a series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, along with that, I think one of the reasons that subbing players out is so important for series, whether it's LPL or LCK, LCK specifically, is that you're playing a series. So over the course of one game, you can play against a team, say, look, this team is good at this, we sucked at this, so let's put a different player in, to put it bluntly. So, but in LCS, you're playing best of ones on separate days, and while there can be a surprise factor in LCK, like, are you playing against Faker or EasyHoon this game? You don't know if they're going to swap things out. When it comes to LCS, even though they've just changed the rules or amended them or improved them, whatever you want to call it, to allow you to now change players in the middle of a week, so say from day 1 to day number 2, and within series when it comes to playoffs, you have to declare the roster that you're using to face off against the teams ahead of time. So teams will already know what to expect, and there won't be that surprise factor that I feel is one of the bigger advantages.
I think the playoffs are going to be the main surprise factor. Like, because mid-series, like I said, I think it could bring a lot of strategic and hidden or just surprise factors during a series that could catch you off guard that you're not prepared for. Like, I think that would be the big thing. But like you said, like during the season, I don't think it's too big of a deal. Like maybe if like pole belter's tilting or something, they're just going to put in QV or whatever. But I think in the playoffs that actually could be pretty big. Like it could, I really like it. It could bring a lot of strategic mindset and attitude into the series and make it pretty different. So it'd be pretty cool to see.
I don't think they actually plan on using it in the same way as Faker and EasyHoon, though. Faker and EasyHoon are, vastly different players. EasyHoon plays so different from Faker. He's a safe wave clear player, and Faker is an aggressive assassin player. If you look at Pobelter and Hui, they're just, we're both going to pick champions that are good at lane, and we have some oddball picks thrown in. So
maybe they picked the wrong mid laners to try to do that with, you're saying? Like, they should have got two different style players?
I think this is more of an extended tryout period for the two of them. Okay. Neither of them are proven in the LCS, so they want to just throw both of them in there.
See who does best.
Yeah, and then they're going to go with whoever does better, and it gives pressure on each other, so they're not going to get complacent in the middle of the split. They're going to keep working hard all the way through the end, which is always a big problem with CLG. They do really well at the start, and then they're like, oh yeah, we're doing awesome. Now we can just kind of chill. Then they kind of fall towards the end of things.
That's true.
Yeah.
I would like to see teams do that EasyHoon Faker thing, though, like down the line. That'd be cool.
I
to
mean,
see.
you'd have to have a series, either a best of 2 or best of 3 kind of series to make that work. And I actually really like that idea. Maybe best of 3s take a little bit too long if it goes all the way to 3 games, but I certainly think like best of 2s are not an unreasonable extension from the best of 1 format. Maybe it stretches the days a little bit longer, but then maybe you have like fewer games per day and then more days, something along those lines. Because I just know that when it comes to playing one game, maybe that makes cheese more effective and it might make things more exciting from like a viewer standpoint. But having the ability to adapt and adjust to what a team is bringing onto you, I think that's a large portion of what it means to be like a professional player, like the degree to which you can actually like say, look, I am good at League of Legends because I can handle not just this best of 1, but over the course of the series, I can be good and then change to be better.
Blind pick game 3. Give it to us, baby.
Dude, blind pick. I actually really like blind pick, but I think Riot has said in several posts that it's fun, but they want to they want to maintain and sustain the competitive nature of the.
I could agree. I could
fan
see
base.
both sides of it. I just think it's pretty fun and interesting to have that, but I wouldn't like it in a finals, like determining #1 team or something.
Yeah, but then it's a different type of strategy.
Yeah.
So
I just think, how would you prepare for that though? You know what I mean? Like when there's teams,
that's all skill and draft. Skill and draft, man.
So like just like you don't practice like a LeBlanc versus LeBlanc. You know what I mean? Like that'd be pretty weird.
Yeah, but you could prepare for it though. You could have a game plan. Like if you're the weaker mid lane, then maybe okay, I'm scared of Faker playing LeBlanc, so I'm going to pick Lulu because I predict him to pick the LeBlanc and stuff like that. It's kind of like this crazy mind game that you got to work out and try to predict what they're going to do. I think it's an even like deeper level of strategy.
I guess I'm not against it. I just think it would be pretty interesting to see how like we would like NA would react to that.
And NA is not ready for it. NA is not ready for this level of like mind games.
True.
Well, what do you think? Well, then, Frank, what do you think about adding just like a whole new player rosters to your team? Like, I know one of the bigger changes for TDK is they came in and they actually got into LCS with Alex Ish as their mid laner, and a lot.
The mercenary.
Yeah. The mercenary.
A lot of people had a lot of things to say about that. They were certainly strong enough to get into LCS, but do you think that now they're strong enough to stay there? And then also, some of the bigger changes to their roster with bringing in Ninja and Emperor.
I mean, the whole of TDK was already Korean in a sense, and if we look back at the games, Alex just held his own. It's not like he got like a backpack and it's like, all right, you kids, like hop in my backpack, like we're going to LCS now. Like Louis played like out of his mind.
Yeah,
some of his great.
Got all of those Essence Reavers.
And then of course now he's gone for some reason. So I mean, I'm sure TDK has a plan. I'm sure their owners, Chris or Toby, has a plan for them. And now that I know that Chris and Toby kind of funded a lot of stuff out of like almost out of pocket themselves as well. It was this chance of being in LCS gives them a huge opportunity to actually grow and develop the team, maybe even at a faster pace than what like NA teams are able to do. Just because they might carry over like the Korean work ethic that we're trying to replicate, but can't get there yet.
Yeah. It is a big step, very new style of team, very new idea to have when you bring a team over. And regardless of, even just the new players, having new teams in LCS. What do you think about Enemy Esports as they have now joined LCS? They just destroy the challenger scene against the teams that they were playing against at the time. But now, of course, a lot of new teams rising up. How do you think they're going to fare in that transition from NACS to LCS? And, of course, Drew and Bonquish as well.
I think they're going to do fairly well. I think they're going to struggle at the start. I mean, it's just a totally different way the game is played in the LCS compared to the amateur scene most of the time. And I think they'll improve as the split goes on. I predicted them when we did power rankings earlier being the 8th place team. So I think they're strong and they have good players, but not sure if they're ready to like, tear it up like Unicorns of Love and jump all the way to the finals.
All right, what about you, Alec, and then maybe Frank to close out?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you said. I think they might struggle a little in the beginning, but I think they're a pretty good team. Like they definitely, I think, are better than Dignitas. I think they'll be better than TDK. There's what else is there? But yeah, I could see them being, like you said, around 8th place, maybe 7th. But yeah, I think they'll do pretty well, actually. I don't think they'll struggle too hard.
What do you think about Enemy, Frank?
Well, shout out to my homeboy Angel Vigil for making it out of the manager chat. That is probably not LCS.
It's getting there, man. Working on it, one day at a time.
I think they'll play well enough. Being just brand new in LCS, they will play a lot harder. They'll try to play not to lose. So I think they will avoid getting essentially like any of the relegated stuff at the end. So they might struggle this season a little bit, but not to a point where they'll get kicked right out. But I feel like their second season in, they'll be a lot stronger. Like they'll improve probably the most out of all of them.
Yeah, I definitely think we'll see a lot of improvement. And even over the course of the split, as teams like mesh together or don't mesh together, there's a lot of flexibility. I think you're going to start to see more teams, or a greater realization that teams may be a little bit closer in skill level. And obviously there will still be the top few teams and the bottom few teams that have, big issues or big success stories with their rosters. But I do think the middle of the pack could be shaken up a little bit, just given how many new players and new teams are coming into this split of NALCS. So a lot of excitement there. And with all the changes, how does LCS look coming into it this split? Let's go ahead and work down some predictions, maybe get some lock-ins on what do you think the order of teams is first to last, or maybe just more of a general approach. What are your predictions for this split of NALCS, just starting things out? I think we'll go ahead and start with Drew and then work our way through Bonquish onto Frank.
Okay, I will start at the bottom and work my way up.
Okay.
And I didn't change it this time.
Okay,
the first time I made the list.
You made some adjustments earlier at the last second, so...
Yeah, I changed
what are
the
your
list
power
like
rankings?
3 times in the time it took the other people to say their lists. But okay, at 10th, I have TDK. Little bit of bias because I'm still a bit salty. They knocked my team out in the qualifiers. I'm the, what did you call me, Rapid? The salt flats.
Yeah, there are a number of names for what you are, and all of them include tons and tons of saltiness. So
yeah. Okay, and then at 9th I have Dig. They didn't make any roster changes after taking Fusion to a 5th game, so not looking the strongest in my opinion. And then at 8th I have Enemy. I think they're just going to struggle at the start, and that's where they're going to end up. So that means they'll drop down back to relegations, but I do think they can make it back into the LCS afterwards, though. I definitely picture them still being in next split. At 7th, I have Team 8. I think they will be like substantially above the 3 teams below them. They're looking stronger now that they've picked up Nian. I think he'll be a really good addition to the team. Him and Dodo as a duo lane is a little bit shaky in my opinion, but both of them are good outside of the laning phase. So if Team 8 can work out that issue, I think they'll be a good team. At 6, this is going to be the shocker for everybody, but I have CLG.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's just...
Well, what happened to your faith in their potential?
Okay, it's like when you meet a pretty girl at the store and you're like, or wherever, and you're like, hey there, you're awesome. And then one day you realize, oh my gosh, she's actually a crazy person. And you get on out of there. And then you see her again and you're like, why did I ever leave? And then you go back and then oh gosh, she's still crazy. Nothing changed. And you leave again and then you get that text message. And you think,
oh God.
I'm not going back. But then, suddenly, you're like replying, hey, baby, and all that.
Oh,
But, this time, I'm not going back, CLG. I'm not putting my faith in you. Not even in the regular season this time. What was that Loco Doco thing? Broken hearts, shattered dreams. Yeah.
I guess I can definitely see where your struggle's coming. How's the rest of your power rankings work out?
Yeah, now that I've derailed for that story. At 5th, I have Gravity. They're pretty much back where they are. I think they have kind of an upgrade on the mechanics level, but I feel like the losing Saint as a shot caller is going to be a pretty big deal. At 4th, I have Cloud9, who is just an absolute wild card. They could be the best team in the LCS, or they could be like middle of the pack bottom, just because it's such a crazy wild card. I don't know how much of an impact High actually had. So, Incarnation could just go crazy. Who knows? And then, next I have Team Liquid at 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
Looked pretty strong, finally breaking the curse. And then 2nd, I have Tip. They look pretty ridiculous. Really, really strong. Rush is a monster. Made it to 2nd in the solo queue ratings on
tied
Korea.
For 1st.
Oh yeah, it was tied for 1st. He had the same amount of points as Faker, but Faker was still higher because for whatever reason he's just glued to the top.
It's like, well, we could change this around, but we can't just put you side to side. So yeah, I can definitely agree with the ascension of Tip up in the standings. So really excited to see them there.
At first, as much as I hate it, as you know, the typical CLG fan, but TSM's at first. I think they're going to fix their MSI issues. I have a lot of respect for their analyst, Dylan. I think they can teach Santorin to not leave Dyrus to the Wolves. I think they can work that one out, that maybe their top laners should get a cannon minion once a game. Maybe.
Some changes definitely need to be made between the teams between now and the regular split, but we'll see how things work out there. So let's go ahead and move on over to who did I say was next? I don't remember. I think I was going to go with Alec next. So, Bonquish, what are your picks for this season looking like?
I'll start from 10th place. I think 10th place is going to be Dignitas because they haven't really done any roster changes. They looked pretty weak. I feel Kiwi Kid carried them in the relegation against Fusion. Fusion was pretty close to beating them, so
I definitely kind of unexpected to see Kiwi Kid just come up absolutely monstrous.
Came up, pretty big that series and saved them. So 9th, I would say is going to be TD. No, I would say TDK would be 9th actually. I mean, obviously, we haven't really seen much of them. It's a lot of new players and imports, but I think they'll definitely be the weakest or weaker teams out of the other rosters. 8th, I'm gonna say, is going to be Enemy Esports. They did really good in the challenger scene. They completely dominated. I think they'll be pretty good. They could, I think, actually even move up maybe a couple rankings, but I'm gonna play it safe and keep them around 8. 7th, I will say, is going to be Team 8. Yeah, Team 8.
Why did you put Team 8 in 8th so it matches?
I think they'll be better than Enemy, that's why. But I'm still interested to see how Neon will do with them because I feel even though Maple wasn't the shiniest of players, he still, I thought, fit that team pretty well for their type of play style. So I'm interested to see how Neon, if he can fit into that team play style or change the play style at all. So we'll see that. Next, I would say it's going to be, what is this, 6th place?
Yes.
Would probably be Gravity.
Okay.
Yeah, like you said, they lost Saint, who's a pretty big shot caller. I'm guessing Cop did not want to play anymore because I can't really see why they would try to replace him. Like, even though
Yeah.
Altec might be the better mechanical player, I felt Koff was doing really well and he's very consistent.
Yeah,
so-
he basically said he was just waiting
Yeah.
for them to be able to get a player that
Yeah.
was better than he was, and he's still going to be helping out as an assistant coach. too.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, yeah, I think they'll still be pretty good, but I don't think they might not do as well as they did last split, but they could actually be pretty good. Maybe, you never know. So that'll be at 6. 5th will be, where am I at? Okay, 5th is I'm gonna say is Team Liquid.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go with Team Liquid as 5th. I don't know how to like. I felt last season they did pretty good with Keith, and then as soon as they were playing with Piglet, it was like I don't know what the hell was happening. And in playoffs they did a lot better, but I can't see them having a strong season. I feel like they are kind of tilty, and they might have some streaks here and there that could affect them. So yeah, I'll put them at 5th, and then 4th. I would say is going to be. Wait, was that 4th or 5th? I don't even know, but
That was 5th. Now you're up to 4th.
okay. 4th is going to be. What was that? I would say it's going to be C9 too. I mean, yeah, Cloud9. Losing High, I think is pretty big. Like, even though he wasn't mechanically the best, or like he didn't whatever, but he was pretty much the shot caller, and he controlled the game for them, and I thought it was a huge part of their success. And obviously, like when you saw like when they played foreign teams, their shot calling and their strats were pretty damn good, and their team rotation, everything. I think it was because of him. So I'm interested to see how they do without that. But yeah, okay. Then 3rd place. I feel like I missed a team, but okay. I'm gonna say next is
CLG, Tip, and TSM are all left.
Oh no, I already said I did say CLG. I said CLG was like.
Oh, that's
5th
true.
or
That's true. That's
something.
true.
So then, yeah, CLG's 5th, Liquid's 4th, 3rd is C9, then 2nd, I'm gonna say is Team Impulse.
Okay.
And yeah, they looked very strong, I thought, and I think they're just gonna get better. So I could definitely see them going to 2nd, maybe even they maybe could take 1st, but I just think TSM is too strong of a team, and I think they'll be fine. Like, yeah. TSM's TSM. They always usually come up on top, so I'm going to go with them as number 1.
Usually. Hopefully you can see some teams kind of rise to the challenge and kind of challenge them there. Frank Fang, what do you think about the North American LCS teams? Do you think they're challengers for first place against TSM, or how do your power rankings stack up?
All right, so me and Alec pretty much have the same power rankings. Dig at 10, TDK at 9, Enemy at 8. I had Gravity at 7, and I had Team 8 above Gravity. So that was the flippy floppy.
Yeah, so why would you put Team 8 above Gravity? I know both teams have made changes. Do you just feel like teammates will work better together, or what's your reasoning there?
I think it would be a lot more. Gravity lost their kind of commander in a sense, in Saint. So finding a voice to carry them out through the games might be a little rough. While Teammates was essentially just, all right, we're just gonna pick up Maple and drop in Nian. And having worked with Nian brings a lot of positive, kind of like a positive aura with the team, and somehow just makes everyone around him play a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm gonna give Team 8 like the edge over Gravity. And then I have CLG at 5th. I can see the two mids switching in and out be effective, but it won't come to fruition until probably next season or so. TL at 4, just because I feel like they'll always kind of like middle of the pack. And then C9 at 3, Tip at 2.
Mm-hmm.
And TSM at 1. Now the 1 and 2 can just switch in and out.
That's actually kind of interesting. So you think Team Impulse could actually foreseeably take first place this season?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's actually, I don't think anyone else I've talked to has actually thought that. Mostly, I mean, it's kind of hard to go against, TSM winning NALCS so much, especially with changes to Cloud9, with no changes made to the TSM roster. Although I definitely will expect changes to be made over the course of the season and maybe go back to the roster changes after the season. I wouldn't say that my power rankings are too differently. I think TDK definitely has a lot of potential to do very well with Ninja coming in. That guy, I don't see him doing a single bad thing in NALCS. Like I think he's going to really be a good pick to bring in. And while his champion pool was kind of limited to Assassins and Jace in LPL when he was subbing in for World Elite, he does have a bunch of really, really high-powered international experience, and that's something that's kind of invaluable to a team. He speaks the same language as the rest of the roster, with the notable exception of Smoothie, and I think Smoothie can work very well with Emperor just because he's already used to playing with Korean duo laner, because he used to play with Loyal or Luis XGG. Either way, so I definitely think TDK have maybe some higher potential, maybe as high as like 8th or 7th or 8th maybe. Enemy Esports, I actually think they could do very well, probably as well as 6th, but probably will wind up about that 8th place towards the bottom. Definitely more than willing to see them do super well, so I'm not saying I want them to be there. That's just my reality. And I actually think that while CLG and Gravity may be a little bit more towards the middle of the pack, around that 5th or 6th spot, Gravity's changes represent a very clear goal in mind. And that is, okay, maybe our shot calling in the jungle isn't working out with St. Vicious. He's going to step away and transition to Coast's coach. There we go. But I think Move being brought in is invaluable. He's coming out of AG Gaming, a Chinese TGA team, and then also previously to that, he was on Edward Gaming's B team in LSPL. So you got to give them, or give him, a little bit of hype coming in. I think he's got a lot of potential, kind of on that same level of Ninja. So I'd expect Gravity to do very well, especially with Altec coming in. It will be about how well he can mesh with Bunny Fufu, but Bunny Fufu has always been that playmaking support, so even if dual lane doesn't go so well, it's like you've kind of got an extra carry on your team with Bunny able to, just be a god on Thresh and have some great engages on other supports. And while we get up to the top half of the standings, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised to see Liquid estimated to be around that 4th place ranking, even though they did climb up to 3rd. Competition is actually really heating up this season. So I'd say they and Cloud9 might have a lot to fight over as far as that 3rd place spot's concerned. But as far as the first two go, Team Impulse, I don't think anybody's going to rate them very lowly. They've got one of the most improved junglers in LCS in Rush, maybe even the most improved jungler in Rush. And of course, Impact. Top lane hard carries are very difficult to find nowadays, and having one of the best ones, of course, coming off of that SKT roster, it's going to be monstrous to watch him face up against NALCS laners. And of course, TSM, always going to be close to the top of the splits. It's kind of like the Fnatic, where even if you do a bunch of crazy changes, even if you just go back to the way you were, somehow you're all still really good. And so I expect to see them do very well as well. And that kind of does it for our predictions for NALCS. Anybody have any extra comments about any of the power rankings, thoughts about the teams?
I think no, not really.
Okay. All right. Well, that's perfect transition. We're going to kind of be closing down the show. So if you have any questions in chat, make sure to type them out. Let us know what's going on. If you have any questions for us, or you want any opinions on things, want some information, let us know and we'll do our best to answer your questions. But for now, we're going to do a brief touch on the international scene. Maybe talk a little bit about Korea, because there have been some interesting things happening in LCK. And of course, if you guys watch the Korean Challenger scene, maybe a little bit niche, but some pretty cool things happening there too. So let's just go ahead and talk about Korea maybe just a little bit. I know maybe not everyone follows it to the same degree, but we do have a couple of big things to talk about. One of the biggest being, we're talking about TDK and Enemy entering LCS. Kind of just had the same thing happen in Korea with teams like Spenu and Anarchy entering LCK. So turning this over to Drew, what do you think about Anarchy coming up really big in LCK?
Yeah, Anarchy looked absolutely amazing. If anyone out there doesn't know the story of kind of like what went down with Anarchy, they are just 5 guys that played solo queue and made a team no sponsors, no money, no support staff whatsoever. Like none of them. Like none of it. Not even like a kind of manager dude that hangs out with them. Like just 5 players, and they
They need
pulled
a
off
Frank Fang.
Yeah, dude, Frank, you're in the wrong country, man. You got to go over there, help out Anarchy, get them all the way to first place in LCK.
Not
Alright, I'll
even
cook
a
them.
Frank Fang.
I'll cook for them. I'll cook any barbecue for them.
All right.
That's really my contribution.
But they pulled off an insane upset over Najin. And
Yeah. To be fair, that series for Najin had many problems for them, and they, versus any team, but specifically versus Anarchy, it was really impressive to see that upset.
yeah, and the real big carry of that team is someone named Mickey God. You might have seen him from some plays on Reddit. Crazy Zed player, really high-rated challenger player in Korea. And honestly,
enough, he actually played previously, not necessarily, before his experience professionally. He actually was just a very highly ranked solo queue player. And he played in the Korea Gosu series, which was a bunch of just random solo queue players who were very, very high elo, along with, spoiler alert, this guy named CV Max, who just happens to be their top laner too. He's the Xazus of Hecarim. Like, if you guys ever remember, Xazus and what he brought to the top lane, I think his claim to fame was Maokai for a while.
it was Alistair.
It was Alistar, that's right. That's right. And he's just like, we could play these crazy champions. For CV Max, it was Hecarim. And so Mickey God as well. They used to play together a little bit just in solo queue, and then they come together in this team. What's so special about Mickey God, Drew?
He's just a crazy, flashy, mechanical player. And honestly, when I saw the game, I thought, okay, Mickey God carried them. They're not going to be able to win too many games going forward. Mm-hmm. But then they didn't win the series, but when they played against CJ,
yeah,
they like destroyed them the first game. Like they had their support, Snowflower?
Yeah,
I believe.
Snowflower.
Like Snowflower going crazy on Thresh, like right in front of Mad Life, making plays. So it was really impressive. Like this, if you want to be the hipsters of the next big team to come up in Korea, go start fanboying those guys. They're really good.
Yeah, it's exciting to see new challenger teams come in. But of course, the same stories as we've had all season long. Some substitutes for the rosters, working out for, I think it's a newly revamped IM team. Incredible Miracle faced the up and down matches last season, and they're coming out just looking incredibly strong. And I don't think the roster that they're currently running is the one that they necessarily planned on running initially, but they've gotten players from just about everywhere. Almost the same story for Samsung, too, who have come out with an almost brand new straight out of solo queue roster. And both teams that were kind of facing relegations dominated the up and down matches, got their way back into LCK. They're actually coming back with some pretty interesting rosters too.
Yeah, there's just lots of awesome stuff going on. If you guys want to watch a pretty good series, watch Jin Air vs. Incredible Miracle.
Ooh, yeah.
It's a really good series. When I was watching it, I thought, never in my life did I think I would be hyped for Jin Air versus IM. But it was really good. Like, Pilot went crazy and dumpstered people on Blue Ezreal, which you haven't been seeing that lately with all these tanks, but he pulled it off. And some of you guys might recognize IM's top laner, Apple. He played on Quantic NNA for a while. So...
Why are you laughing, Frank Fang?
Yo, man, I first blooded him. Easy peasy.
Oh my god, here we go.
Didn't you also kill XPK in lane, Frank?
Yo, I'm just a legend. You guys are lucky NA's lucky to have me.
Well, we're lucky to have you because of teams like Frank Fang Gaming. So you can continue your legacy in the challenger scene and continue to.
I want my boys to relive the glory that I did. You know,
one day. Well, it should be
killing Apple, going up top lane, get killed.
It should be mentioned, the IM roster that we were hyping up because of Apple coming from Quantic, moving back to Korea, and sort of highlighting the top lane there. He and Lilac kind of share that role, but Apple's been looking very good. Another big story for IM is their support player, Ignar.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Dude, he's the next big thing. So if you're looking for a fan, you're looking for the next Mad Life out there. He kind of reminds me of a little bit like more of like a Bunny Fufu kind of style player, where he may not he may try to make a bunch of plays that don't work, but when they do, you're just gonna be like, oh my gosh. So yeah, watch out for Ignar. If he ever gets threshed, you're gonna be in for a treat. A really exciting time to be a fan of IM. New roster, a lot of potential. So we'll definitely keep our eyes on that and see how that works out. Any other things to mention from Korea for either Bonquish or Frank?
I think the only thing I don't really watch much of Korea, but the only thing I have noticed about the Korean scene is the influence of the Chinese like bringing in. They have a lot of money, obviously, and they've been wheeling in a lot of Korean players. And I think it might be affecting the way Korea is against China, obviously now, which is showed at MSI.
Yeah, the fact that Ambition is now a top jungler, that kind of shows how the talent's going over there.
Like, isn't China mainly right now like a lot? Like, it has a lot of Korean players, right? Like,
it has all the Samsung players, that's for sure. It's like, if you win Worlds, you're going to China. It's like, well, what do you win? The Summoners Cup, a big fat check, and a bigger, fatter one from playing on a Chinese team. So saw a lot of teams, a lot of players transfer over to the Chinese scene. And of course, results from MSI definitely showing that, with EDG coming out, just dominating everything. It was a really close series, so it did go the distance versus SKT, but a lot of influence. So if you don't watch a lot of LPL or LCK, the Chinese and Korean scenes respectively, you definitely want to make that happen, because it is, there's going to be a lot of good things coming out from there. And of course, from LCS or Challenger Series or anywhere else out there, it's going to be an exciting time to be a fan of League of Legends. A lot of things to watch. So I think that's actually going to do it for our first episode of Buff Stuff. If you guys have any final comments to make, any points to touch on, or any shout-outs, let's go ahead and go through everything. So we'll go ahead and start with Frank, then move on to Bonquish, and then kind of close out the show.
I'd like to thank all our fans, and especially my players on my team and like the support staff, for being behind, following this dream that we all have to make it into LCS, and to not get swayed by like money, I guess, from like other offers, because even though the players right now aren't getting paid, they're trying their hardest, and I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. All right, so shout-outs to Frank Fang Gaming. If you guys are fans of the North American Challenger scene, make sure to support them as they go through the NACS qualifiers, which will be happening over the course of this week. So make sure to keep your eyes on those, and we'll see how Frank Fang does there, or Frank Fang Gaming does there. Frank Fang, of course, will be doing well no matter what's going on. But moving on over to Baby Zeus, how are you doing, Alec? And do you have any final shout-outs before we close out the game?
Pretty much same thing as him. I'm going to make a shout out to Frank Fang Gaming. We play tomorrow against C9T, so I wish them all the luck they can have, and I hope we have fans that can support us and come cheer us on. Yeah, and regardless if you're a fan of Frank Fang Gaming or any of the other Challenger teams or players, make sure to show your support. Challenger scene needs a lot of love, and do appreciate all the support for that too. And of course, do want to appreciate your support of this show. Couldn't do Buff Stuff if it weren't for Wazabi Productions producing all of this. So I do want to thank them for this opportunity. I want to thank everybody else for tuning in. And before we close things out, I do want to turn things over to my co-host. Drew, do you have any final closing words?
Just thanks to everybody out there for coming on and watching. Thanks to good old Wasabi for letting me do this, letting me just talk endlessly about League of Legends. I mean, that's my favorite thing to do anyway, so this is awesome. And shout out to Aware Gaming, who I'm an analyst for, so those guys are awesome. We're totally going to beat Storm, and just Yeah, thanks for watching, people.
All right, well, good luck with that. And of course, if you guys want more buff stuff or want anything to do with Wazabi Productions, whether it's League One, League of Legends, we'd love to hear what you have to say. If you have any feedback on buff stuff, let us know. Use hashtag buff stuff. Tweet at Wazabi Prods on Twitter. We'll be glad to take some of your feedback into consideration. Still working on things, still trying to make this the best League of Legends show there is out there. So we'd appreciate your help with that. So I guess that's going to do it. So on behalf of myself, all of our wonderful panelists, Wazabi Productions, and everyone out there for watching, thanks for checking out Buff Stuff. We'll be back next week.